Yes, it's live. Yeah, it is a public stream. If you go to my home, oh, it says one watching. Are you the one watching? Okay, you can see. I'm switching between Chrome and another browser I like to use. I know.
problem, for at least for me, when I have missed a few updates. That's when I have the hardest time picking up the pen to start doing an update of Unfamiliar, because I feel like a failure and I feel frustrated and sad, and whatever the reason is that I missed updates, it makes me want to avoid the project altogether. So what I recommend in order to keep yourself motivated is to do whatever you can to make sure that you keep to your update schedule. It'll make you feel proud when you think about it, your consistency, and that will help you stay motivated. Also, it just seems easier when there's less gaps between your pages. If you're doing pages a lot, it doesn't seem so difficult, whereas if it's been a while, it's going to seem like a bigger feat than it actually is. The stress of it just makes it feel like a bigger task. The other thing you can do is just make sure that you're not pushing yourself too hard. If you have like school and another job or something like that, don't expect yourself to be making a page every day. It's just not realistic. Secondly, if you have a style that's really detailed and delicate, you have to give yourself more time. I intentionally picked a style that's relatively simplistic when I started making my comic because I wanted my updates to be frequent. Lastly, make sure there's accountability. Put it up online and make sure that your update schedule is clear to your viewers, whoever they might be. Even if there's only a friend or two looking at your comic, it will still make you feel more motivated to get it done on the update schedule if you know that people are waiting for you. It's something that helps me out a lot for sure. So the last thing you need to do before you really start is to design your characters and make sure that they look exactly the way you want them to before you get started. On the other hand, don't beat yourself up too much if they're starting to look a little different. You don't want to fight progress, and you are going to get better at drawing really quickly if you're drawing so much for your comic. So don't freak out too much. As you can see, Planchette looked really different in page 1 than she did in the more recent pages because my art style has been evolving and I've been making little changes to her, so it's not too big of a deal. So now I'm going to go through step by step and show you exactly everything I do to make my comic, and these are steps that you can do whether you're a traditional artist or a digital artist. Now, the first thing a lot of people ask me is, what size do I make my pages? So my pages are 7 inches by 10.5 inches, and that was just something that I looked up to see basically what good sizes are if you want to do printing like for books in the future. So the first step that I take on the actual execution process once I've gotten my empty file is I want to make thumbnails. Now what a thumbnail is just a super tiny version of the page. And this is not a sketch because you're making it so tiny small. It's basically just like the quickest possible sketch that you make it a really small size because you want to be drawing in such a way that you don't worry about erasing. When you do nice sketches, it can feel very painful to erase pieces of them, but at this point you're just plotting out where the word bubbles and where the characters are going to be, and you want to be able to erase a lot. This is the main way that I figure out the flow of the page, and this is a really crucial part. This actually takes a really long time. It's surprising, but even though the thumbnails really look crappy and like they're not very fancy art, this is where the meat of the comic's look is actually decided. Now, after the thumbnails are done, I blow up the thumbnail to a very large size. I make sure it's within my guide, which is basically like a 1/2 inch all around, I think. And that just makes sure that there's like a bleed area where if I do ever get it printed, where the bubbles aren't too close to the edge. Basically, I don't let any of the bubbles get into the guide. So the way to make sure that your bubbles aren't crowding your characters and your words aren't crowding your bubbles is to start with the text. While it's still a messy sketch, you want to type in all of the text. So once you've typed in all your text, then you know how big of a bubble you're going to need. Now you draw out those bubbles and then you can see if there's any places where your art's getting crowded. Now after this is the laborious inking stage. A lot of artists would have an additional sketch stage after this. Usually you wouldn't ink on top of a thumbnail. This is kind of a weird quirk of mine and I don't necessarily recommend it. It's just the way that I do things. It makes it so that I have to figure out a lot of details on the fly, and I personally like that, but for a lot of people, that's a lot of stress in the inking stage that you don't really need. So this part takes the longest by far, and I would also like to mention that this whole comic page is just one comic page, and my art style is relatively simple, but this took me 4.5 hours to make, and this is literally all I worked on during that time, so like I said, comics are a slow business. So all the while I'm inking, I'm making sure that everything is still looking right because you definitely want to catch any final mistakes in this part before you put any color in. Once you too added in the color, changing something is infuriating. If you're not doing color, then you'll be doing grayscale at this point. So this is the coloring stage, and my number one tip for coloring your comic is to make sure to limit your colors. Comics are very, very bloaty when it comes to colors. You'll often find yourself wanting to find more and more colors, and then after a while you look back at your page and you're like, this is a mess. Like, there's just too much going on. When I first started Unfamiliar, I only allowed myself to use 7 colors, and it has since expanded wildly. I used to only have really different shades of blue and orange, and now it's all kinds of crazy colors, and I'm suffering because of that. I wish I had kept it restricted because it actually makes things a lot easier, and weirdly enough, if you get used to that color palette as you're reading it, it doesn't look weird at all. Even though I have like some bluish trees and stuff in there because I didn't really have greens in my color palette, it ends up looking really unified and beautiful. So learn from my mistakes, kids. Keep it restricted if you can, because it makes it so much easier in the future. After the flat colors are in, I am shading and doing some basic like light effects, I would say, like just trying to give some atmosphere to the whole thing and doing gradients and stuff like that. This is very digital, so if you're doing your comics traditionally, you might skip this stage altogether and have done the shading sort of during the coloring area. And with that, we're done. So that's exactly how I make my comic. Obviously, only take the advice that you think would be helpful, and I hope you guys have good luck on your future projects and endeavors. Feel free to tell me about your comic in the comments below if you have one, or if you have any questions you'd like me to answer in a future Do This Not That, please let me know. Another big thanks to Wix for sponsoring the videos. Check the link in the description if you want to try Wix for yourself. Thank you so much for staying till the end, and I'll see you guys later. Big thank you to all of my patrons, including Gaia, Scott Peterson, Christy Stewart, Payne The Artsy Moose, Elizabeth Alvin, Household Home, Bouncy McFluff, Cameo Sparkle, Kanuki, Fixit, Ollie, Nekosama, Hope Chilson, Adriana and Trashomania, Micah Dactyl, Okamura, Matthew Kunke, Vlad Sergeant Pandora, Mina Christine, To Sweet 12, Utaka, Lovely, Lachlan MD, Mystic, Enza Jobert, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, Nebula Blah Blah, and I Hate Visuals.
Live streaming on YouTube is not what it used to be. In fact, not only has it improved so much that it is certainly a viable way to grow your channel, it can grow you to the point where you actually reach your monetization goals. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just going live. Nothing on YouTube can ever be that easy, can it? Programmed, your channel needs to reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. Or in the case of a shorts channel, 1,000 subscribers and 10 million views within a 90-day window. It's a pretty big mountain to climb either way, and for certain types of channels whose production is unavoidably long for just one single video, this goal can be completely unrealistic. Streams are important, but now let's talk about how your live streams can be be successful. As I mentioned before, having a strong title and thumbnail on your live streams is important. I would say the title and thumbnail for your live stream is just as important as any other long form video that you make on your channel. That's because, as long as you pitch it correctly, the VOD lives on your channel for the rest of time, just like any other video. Now, for certain types of channels,
It's Lavender Town, and recently
So I'm going to end the stream now. I'm tired. I have dinner waiting for me as well. I decided to do this later.